Hello, it's Paul from the Unashamed Gamers, or I'm one third of the Unashamed Gamers. We're not really sure anymore, but I just thought I'd ask the question: will Resident Evil 2 underperform? Now, personally, I don't think it will, but I thought that about Resident Evil 7, and it did. Now, obviously, Resident Evil 7 was first person, so people obviously didn't want to jump on the first person bandwagon. I'll try that again. Um, So maybe that's why they underperformed. But I've been looking through a lot of people's comments on Facebook and Twitter, and I found that quite a lot of people aren't happy that we're getting third person perspective in Resident Evil 2, which has led us to think that maybe it could underperform. I mean, personally, I don't think it will. I mean, the game is a thing of beauty. It looks amazing. The sound is amazing. The way the zombies react to being shot is amazing. So everything so far looks brilliant. But the more I look into the game, the more I realize that while it is Resident Evil 2, in a lot of ways it's not. Now, I'll explain what I mean by that. Obviously, it would be terrible if I just said that and then left the video the way it was. That would be ridiculous. But anyway, we aren't getting the old traditional Resident Evil in the respect that we aren't going to get a Claire A and a Claire B campaign or Leon A and Leon B campaign. We're getting Leon and Claire's separate campaigns, which to me isn't a deal breaker. I'm fine with that as long as they stick to the story of Resident Evil 2. But a lot of people aren't happy with that. A lot of people want Resident Evil 2 remade from the ground up, original camera angles, original story. And I can understand that. I really can. Because for a lot of people, Resident Evil 2 is this godlike game. It was when I was a child, because that's when I first played it when I was a child, because I had terrible parents who allowed us to do that. I'm kidding, I'm joking. But in all seriousness, people wanted the game the way it was, just with better graphics. And to an extent, we are getting that. But the third-person camera, the over-the-shoulder camera, is putting a lot of people off the game, which I do get because I did enjoy that then. But it's 2018. It's 20 years after that. It's time for a change. And that's what they're doing. I mean, they've took 3 years to build this game, and it looks brilliant. And we're getting changes, but changes I think that are actually going to be good for the franchise, which I think if we get, a really good, I say we, but if Capcom get really good sales with Resident Evil 2, I think it'll change the scope of Resident Evil going forward. I think after this one, we are going to get Resident Evil 8. And I think if Resident Evil 2 is going to sell more than Resident Evil 7, which I personally think it will, because again, you've got the nostalgia to it, and you've got the people who played Resident Evil 2 will want to come back and check out this one. So I think it'll sell more, because Resident Evil 7 underperformed. It didn't do as well as they had hoped, which is a bad thing, really, because it was such a good game. Resident Evil 6 actually outsold Resident Evil 7. So Resident Evil 6 made more money, and it was the worst Resident Evil we've had. Whereas Resident Evil 7, that horror feel, we got that again. We got that feeling back, but it underperformed, and that was because there was a new camera angle. It was first person, so people were saying, I mean, they still say it now in comment sections on Capcom and on Twitter. They say, well, it's not Resident Evil because it's first person. Whereas we've had Resident Evil 4 in third person, and it did really, really well, but people are complaining that Resident Evil 2 isn't Resident Evil 2 because it's in third person and it's not fixed camera angles. Now, I am a little bit worried that it might underperform, but at the same time, I think that if it doesn't, it will set the standard for every Resident Evil going forward. So if this does really well, which I'm hoping it does, then I think Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil 9 will go back to the horror with using the Resident Evil engine they've got now, We'll go back to the horror that we had, because everyone loves the zombie side of Resident Evil, and a lot of people didn't like the molded, I think they were called in Resident Evil 7. They didn't like that, but they like the aspect of Jack and Marguerite being like the psychos of that game, if that makes sense. So they enjoyed that, but they didn't like the zombies. So going forward, we could get a mixture of the zombies and the psychos, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping that Resident Evil 2 does well, so Capcom see that going forward, this is what we want. We want, you know, the cool ideas from Resident Evil 7 with Jack and Marguerite, and the zombies from Resident Evil 2. Because I don't want it to underperform. I want it to do well, because going forward, we'll get cooler games. They'll see what we are drawn to, especially if it sells more than Resident Evil 7, which I think it's going to do anyway, because so many people are hyped about it. But obviously there is that fear that it'll underperform. So what do you think? I mean, do you think Resident Evil 2 should be back at fixed camera angles? Or do you think people should just enjoy this game for what it's going to be, for how good it looks and how it'll play? And what do you think moving forward we will get? Because personally, I think, like I've said, if it does well, it's going to change the state of games in the Resident Evil franchise. I think going forward, I think we might even get a Resident Evil 3 remake, which I'm hoping for. Because, I mean, with those graphics in Resident Evil 2, in the Resident Evil 3 remake, I think that would be perfect. So I think, fingers crossed, you know, if people can put their bias aside for the fixed camera angles and they can, you know, see the game for what it really is, it's the same game with a few changes, a little bit of added story. I mean, yes, we've lost Leon A and Claire B campaign and vice versa, but I think what we are getting is actually quite cool. And I just hope people can put that fixed camera angle bias aside and enjoy the game for what it is. So moving forward, we can get cool new Resident Evils with the same kind of feel as the Resident Evil 2 remake. So let us know what you think anyway. I'm Paul, 1/3 of the Unashamed Gamers. We did another episode of the Unashamed Gamers live yesterday, which I'll stick the link in the description. We also have a Twitter. I'll leave that there, and a Facebook page. I'll leave that there too. And look out for my next Resident Evil 4 playthrough. I'm going to try a knife-only playthrough, so you can watch us struggle. Obviously, I'll put links there. But the best thing to do is to leave a like and subscribe. Click the little bell notification. That way you'll know when I'm going live, and then you can join us. I mean, we've had a lot of people talking with us while I've been playing, which has been really cool. I do appreciate those people who came out. We had quite a few. The subscriber count has gone up a bit as well, which is awesome. I really do appreciate it. So what do you think? Resident Evil going forward, do you think it should be like Resident Evil 2, or do you want more like Resident Evil 7? Let us know in the comment section below, and thanks for listening.